William Baker had a rough upbringing and stuff like that. Flint Marko actually wasn't his real name. It was actually William Baker. He had an absent father, alcoholic mom, and bullies was in his life. He does have that bully look, doesn't he? He stood up for himself one day, though, realized he liked feeling powerful, thus starting his career as a bully. You know what they say, even the bully was once the one being bullied, right? He actually got good at football. He was thrown out of football because he started agreeing to fumble to help out betting. That was the early start of his life in crime. He was caught and sent to prison, but escaped. He hit close to a nuclear test as it went off. He survived through basically a miracle. His soul became tied to the sand he was lying in and decided to use his new powers to further his criminal career as Sandman. Flint made a name for himself by slipping in the cracks of bank vault security, working with Hydro Man, getting money any way he can, I guess, doing criminal stuff. You get an idea of his origin right here, how he was bullied in school. He wanted to stand up for himself, became good at football, fumbled on purpose, like the stuff I just told you. Cool thing about Sandman is that he kind of got cool with characters like The Thing. I love The Thing. During his criminal days, he fought the Fantastic Four, Spider-Man, the Hulk, and he even stated right here, the battle always ended up on the same way as me losing on the losing side. This is what I was talking about a second ago, about how the nuclear reactor detonated, radioactive waste spilled into the sand, and 1 billion to 1 chance later, there I was. Yeah, he should have died from that. I always thought Sandman getting defeated by a vacuum cleaner being sucked up was actually stupid. It's implied they retconned that to where Sandman let himself get sucked up by the vacuum cleaner of Spider-Man. He stated, as if that would have held me, he said. As if I couldn't have sent my body crashed out in 100 directions at once and shredded like a tin can. Instead, I went along with it because, see, I heard that my father got nailed again and had been sent up the river, which is where they sent me, just like I figured they would. Spider-Man beat me, not really. He just gave me a free ticket to where I wanted to go. So yeah, they're implying that he could have broke out of that vacuum cleaner. Thank goodness. He had a hideout in Coney Island overlooking the beach. Flint Marko, aka Sandman's life went through a lot of changes, including but not limited to battling characters like Spider-Man, joining the supervillain group known as the Frightful Four, getting enhanced armor, fusing with glass. He merged with Hydro Man, becoming Mud Thing. Like, imagine Sandman becoming an Avenger after all these life experiences. Character progression, right? I mean, he wasn't just pure evil anyway. Sandman became a member of the Outlaws. Silver Sable even recruited him into the Outlaws. Sandman even had a broken glass form. There was even a point when Sandman had like an identity crisis, having like different personalities and stuff like that. Imagine becoming a villain, then becoming a hero, then becoming a villain again. Like, that's the life of these supervillains. The supervillains with substance, that is, in Marvel. Naturally, you're probably surprised about how much more it is to Sandman than you originally thought, right? He's one of those fluid type characters. Like, what's cutting his head off going to do? Use sand in the environment to grow another head, you know? Or he doesn't even need a head to survive anyway, you know? He's one of those OG characters. When I say he's fought everybody, including Hulk. Punched him here, hitting him through a wall here, making giant fists. The comics, just the common stuff. This is him wearing that battle suit I was telling you about earlier in the vid. Same with characters like The Thing, making like these giant little fist-like thing. He's strong enough to smash the top of a tank, showing his raw strength, his punching power, more mass for himself, aka creating more punching power for himself. It only adds up. Smashes through all this debris, like can literally get bigger, consistently breaking through stuff, making blades out of his hand if he has to. Like, just check all of that out. Smashing all of that through, that just looks terrifying. Shatters stainless steel leg, cutting it off. Bye-bye drones. Bye-bye hangar door by making a giant hammer. Breaking trees is a joke to him. Hits Nova to the wall here. Smashes a sizable hole in the prison wall. One of any adventure of Spider-Man, of course. See that punch. Literally can reach through the walls. Grab you. Punches a Nova a great distance. Hits a man so hard it had him skipping on water. Sandman strong, baby. He's practically a shapeshifter, so you know he's going to have some insane projectiles, right? Even does this to Red Hulk with a surprise. Blasting him off the helicarrier. Blasting Hulk with some projectiles here. This large throwing machine gets blasted. Throws this ball. It hits Nova through a wall. Projectile. He can just blast holes in the wall. Sand blast power. He can shatter concrete with ease. He picked up this bulldozer this one time and threw it. Lifts and throws a tank, which can be up to 60 tons. He threw the Thing. That's kind of cool. On occasions with Thundra. Of course, I take those class systems as a grain of salt, but they say he's in the 85-ton range. That makes sense because he just lifted a 60-ton tank with ease. Marvel in these ton class systems should clarify it though, but yeah, 85 tons is totally believable. Think about how big he can get. He can get the size of skyscrapers, I'm just saying. We ain't just going to ignore the fact that he can restrain Luke Cage here on this particular occasion. Gotta love the versatility with the sand. I mean, he even trapped Captain Britain for a while. And this guy's a powerhouse tier, which is insane, but he busted out though. But you know, he can't be really killed because he's kind of Loggia type. He blocks this enormous boulder thrown by Hulk like that, pushes this thick metal roof, knocks over all these crates, can literally pierce through a tank with his body. Missiles don't really harm him that much because he's literally makes blades cutting creatures in half, working with symbiotes before. Night cars. These creatures weren't little, by the way. For the most part, it's really hard to hurt Sandman. Like, attacks can literally go through him because he can just make himself soft. But then there are weird occasions in comics because comic logic, right? Where he just gets straight on full-blown punch with normal punches and it hurts him and maybe makes him fall asleep. Weird moments. There are times where he gets hit physically and not just sandy all the time. Like in this example, he made himself into solid granite to make himself more durable. I just wouldn't take your chances with him. Don't shoot him with physical stuff. Hit him with elemental stuff. It implies it causes him pain, though. That's weird. This is weird. Passing through his sand form without embracing for it, I guess. Still stings a bit. It's one of them situations where he can withstand being blasted into pieces, but if he gets blasted in pieces without consciously making himself being like spread out like that, I guess it's painful, he said. He can totally survive being blasted apart. Isn't that sweet? Silver Sable seems happy to see him. When it comes to Spider-Man villains being physically the strongest, a lot of people can debate Rhino being one of the physically strongest. He was actually training with Rhino, using shields to block attacks from Rhino is pretty impressive, showing where the right intent for Sandman's power levels. In this occasion, with the armor on, he got hit by Thundra. Yeah, it's weird seeing Sandman in these masks. This large metal item breaks on his body. That's how durable he can get. He even states, I can make myself hard as a rock, heavy as a boulder. Punching the thing back on this occasion, he can plug up shotgun barrels with his hand to make the gun explode. Gatling gun bullets just pass through him, absorbing a ton of bullets. Like, how many occasions do we need to see of this? You see this man getting shot up here? That's actually him pretending to be the victim. It's a setup to make it look like he got shot up. Sandman trolling with the bullets out of him now. Shotgun blasts to the chest are a joke to him. Sand mode. Yes, bullets can even pass through his head. Yet again, another occasion of bullets passing through him. These people gonna learn today. Don't shoot at this guy. I mean, look how the spikes pass through him, but it doesn't fatally wound him. I think that's pretty cool. He's consistently reforming after being blown apart. Being blown apart isn't a real threat to him, I would say. Only limits is said, oh, say he's a little tired, so maybe he can be overtaxed on this stuff. He was able to put out the flame of Human Torch by smothering him with his sand. Even able to block some fire attacks from Human Torch, which is insanity. He even travels through a burning building and shoved debris aside to save folk. Doesn't seem to be too bothered by it either. The Thing's signal flare passes through him like that. On one of his many occasions with Spider-Man, he's still somewhat able to fight even though the sprinkler system is on, even though this is messing him up quite a bit. Like, they thought they had beaten him. He even states, Spider-Man says, that's all it took. Seriously? Then Sandman says, no, dummy. Yeah, just because you have a lot of water doesn't give you an instant win against Sandman. He's actually more resistant than you think. It's not just the end-all be-all if you got water. Obviously, water-type characters will be a bad matchup for him still. As long as he's standing on a whole bunch of sand, he can fight somewhat in the water to a degree. In this case with Captain America, even far waist deep in water. But keep note, he has to stay focused because this is kind of a dangerous scenario. He even states, almost lost control of my sand particles, not the wisest of moves in the water. He even got blasted by several water cannons. Was able to keep his form, but yeah, he had to escape. He was like, nah, this is getting dangerous. Escaping through a drain and reforming later. So yeah, water can defeat him. It's not a good matchup against him. Water attack here with the hydrant and then got hit by the Thing. Got hit by some water to blast him through metal. Close range hit with water cannon here. Even fought Hydro Man before. Oh my gosh, terrible matchup for him. Still didn't get curb stomped like you would think though. Blocking attacks from Hydro Man on top of that, even being able to react to Rhino mid-punt. He's even reformed after a blast from the Annihilus, a powerhouse. He's been shocked by Electro before. He's been against all the elements, ain't he? Freezes himself with liquid nitrogen. Continues talking like he's okay, unaffected by the poison gas he has released, evidently. He even gets frozen solid before, but it's stated that he'll be fine after he thaws out, letting you know this is not an instant kill. Like, you can't kill him with ice either. Even endured Hazmat's radiation blast. They even state, not bad, little girl, except getting zapped by radiations, how I got my powers don't bother me none. A constant rogues gallery member of Spider-Man, obviously. He was able to form a shield around Silver Sable before the energy blast can make it to her in time, helping out his teammates in the process. This missile by Dr. Doom, he made a hole in himself. Like, this is a reaction feat when you purposely make your body open up to have stuff pass through it. Reacting to combat against Spider-Man, like ducking in this occasion, having them collide. He literally split in two to avoid an attack from Hydro Man in the battle feat with Hydro Man. As you can see here, you see how the Hydro Man shoots a blast and he just breaks apart so he doesn't get hit by it. Reaction feat. Him and Hydro Man seem to be going at it in consistent battle feats, by the way, even though he's made out of water, which should technically be a terrible matchup for him. Consistently a threat for Spider-Man, reacting to Spider-Man, slamming him. Avoids the energy beam here, speed, big ol' hammer fist. Catches Spider-Man's web blast via reaction, see that? Dodges one of Human Torch's attacks. In battle feats with Spider-Man, Spider-Man even complements his speed. We already know how quick Spider-Man is, right? Clearly stated that his spider sense warned him, but he still couldn't duck in time, showing his combat speed. It's one thing to be able to compete with Spider-Man in speed, but to actually be able to compete with his speed on top of his spider sense, Spider-Man stating his spider sense wasn't fast enough. Spider-Man has some heavy writer intent on where the writers want him when it comes to speed or reaction speed. There's been villains to say that they have the speed of light on their side, but yet Spider-Man's still able to avoid their attacks. That's something to be respected. Respect Sandman's speed. When it comes to Sandman's physiology, he's actually very complex. It's funny how they explain these things in like newer comics rather than explaining it in the very old comics to such a degree. They explain it here. At his core, Sandman is actually a single grain of sand. That single grain contains all his brainwaves and controlling the rest of the sand that makes up his body. When that one grain of sand is separated from any other sand, that sand stops being controlled by him. And he can't do anything until this one grain comes to contact with more sand. Spider-Man been fighting for years, so wouldn't he know? They explain it in such a way about the brain waves and tag it with radioactive dye. That's they're trying to fight Sandman in this occasion. It probably wasn't the best idea to fight him in the desert either with all this power. Respect it. And the one true way to defeat him is to snatch the single grain out of the desert. You got to target that one that's got his whole consciousness and brainwaves. They would have to give him limits like this because how else would they beat him? Like, he would be like unstoppable. The good thing is that he's in control and aware of the individual grains that make up his body. He kind of can increase his tier, kind of implying here that he can increase his mass with extra sand, adding more to his body, more grains. Somehow can still speak underwater. Somehow still has blood though, even though he can just completely turn into sand. Make it make sense. I think this shirt is just a part of him at this point. Even when he gets out of other clothes, that is the same shirt he was wearing when he got his powers. So I guess that's a part of his little sand form. This has got to be one of his signature moves, allowing punches to pass through him. No matter what your tier is, he does it to everybody. Even the Thing punches passing through him. This is probably the main reason why he can give powerhouse tiers this much of an issue, because he's such a nuisance to fight. He's one of those characters where you can be literally stronger than him, but just the way his physiology is, it's hard to fight him. Having webs pass through him here, handcuffs pass through his wrists, police officers dive right through him, Spider-Man going through him on too many occasions. He kind of can escape the Thing's grapple just by going soft mode. He can make his body soft, super durable, or super thin like a tidal wave of sand. Can flood rooms containing the Fantastic Four. He's like a nuisance. No matter what tier you are, he's just such a nuisance. He even covered Hulk in a whole bunch of hardened sand. Of course, the Hulk breaks out, of course, though. Turns into this large cylinder steamroller thingy. Sandman just having fun with his powers at this point, turning into large animate statues and fighting as it. He was able to turn into some sand that was able to trap Reed Richards and couldn't really get out. If he has enough sand, this is why I say it depends on the environment, he can kind of jump tiers. One could debatably say he surpasses Spider-Man in just raw strength thanks to being able to absorb enough sand in the vicinity, becoming the size of a freaking skyscraper. Like, yes, he's that freaking goddamn big. Like, in this state of strength, he can lift a lot, like even battleships. He can get creative with the weapons he creates, like making himself have hammers, spiked balls, blocks, make his legs into pillars, make a whole bunch of fists at once. Even if he only has 2 arms, he can like make himself have 3 arms or 6 arms or whatever. Blades. Even though he can just technically have the bullets pass through him. If he wants to, he can make his sand hard enough to where bullets can't even pass through him, to where it's like a literal shield. He even made his arm to a snake one time. He created like this small castle. Look at that, that's cute. Look at that. He made like a version of Silver Sable. Figures of him and Silver Sable. Are you kidding me? And he became a large sand castle. Isn't that cool? But seriously though, his main weakness is water indeed. Getting wet, sand turns into mud, and he can't keep his form that great, and he's susceptible to damage a lot easier. He was threatened by rain this one time. Heck, he even had to rush to get a taxi. It was that bad. There's been cases where he can even get too heated up and he'll turn into glass. Heat inducement type of occasions. Statue of Living Crystal on this occasion. Heat inducement. Became an orb of glass. So yeah, he's had some solid L's. That awkward moment during their battle with each other, Hydro Man and Sandman really did the fusion technique by accident. It became like this giant mindless monstrosity. Later on, it got experimented on. The mud thing I brought up earlier, of course, like Hydro Man and Sandman fused together with the radiation giving the two enough strength to emerge and separate. However, immediately after this, Sandman wasn't at full strength and his feet weren't able to fully form after them two split up. Interesting, right? And this mud thing said they was giving Spider-Man some issues, punching him into crates, Spider-Man getting sleepy, kind of being too strong for him, these two fused together. In this occasion, Mud Thing walked through walls like it was nothing. SWAT team ain't ready for all this. Climbs up a building and stuff. He even grew in size as water is applied. Remember the identity crisis stuff I brought up earlier? Well, I'm back to it. Like his psyche got fragmented after his defeat, one of his many defeats. Multi-personality disorder stuff for a bit. Pretty intriguing. This is his evil aggression psyche. Very menacing looking, would you say? And his femininity form. Like what the heck? Even she got waves. I'm not gonna lie, some of this stuff looks like some horror movie art style or something you would see out of the Sandman comics or some gag type stuff. Like what the art style is this? Comic logic for you. I never really got on his potential though. How much stronger could he actually get in the heat of battle depending on the sand, his giant time. He's gotten so big on times where he can literally throw shipping containers for Pete's sake. Like look at the massive size difference here, reacting to him. In speed, throwing all that heavy stuff, like look how big he is in comparison, and etc. Respect that. And here's another occasion of him growing giant. Like look at the size of him compared to Elephant. Respect it. His potential and power, being able to grow building size. Holy moly, another occasion of him getting freaking massive. Yet again, look at Moon Knight. Look how big he got here. Like really big, making the Ferris wheel look small in comparison to everything. He can tear off the Ferris wheel and even lift the Ferris wheel up. I'm interested to hear you guys' thoughts below on how strong y'all think he was when he was this skyscraper. Do you think he was still Spider-Man level strong, or do you think he surpassed his strength at this exact moment? Because he was massive here. Even when you Google how many tons is a battleship, this pops up 47,000 long tons, but the weight varies obviously. But this is impressive considering the amounts of massive sand he can absorb to increase his strength if he wants to. Occasions like this, being able to lift up battleships this big, I mean, look how massive he got too. It also makes sense. This will make Sandman strong enough to lift over 40,000 tons. I do believe most of the time they are equal physically, but on rare occasions when Sandman can kind of change his strength tier, he can absorb massive amounts of sand to where I have no choice but to believe he can physically surpass the Spider-Man strength level if the scenarios or prerequisites are met. Only real way to beat him is using weaknesses like water and stuff like that because of how fluid his body is, or with some type of prep. Heat can also be a bad combination to him as well as water. Sandman is basically immortal in a sense, considering there was an alternate version of him that lived for billions of years. I died, really. My human body died, but I lived on as sand. It even stated, I'm being controlled by my future self, but he's not. His memories aren't mine. It's almost like this Sandman is like a better version of the previous one because his future self that's got a lot more experience is in a younger Sandman's possession at the moment, which can further show how much of a threat Sandman is. It even states here, having spoken a human language in 4 billion years. In this particular occasion, having access to the Sahara Desert and being able to control all the sand in the Sahara Desert, I do think he physically surpassed Spider-Man in this occasion in particular, especially with all this desert. Being able to control massive portions of sand like the entire Sahara Desert, even stated here. Only reason Spider-Man was able to get the advantage is because the prep time, they had a plan to isolate Sandman like this stuff I showed earlier. But yeah, on this level of power, he was he was too much for them physically. And understandably so, right? Sandman was so powerful, he even stated, there ain't enough water in the world to wash me away or fire to bake me into glass or any other of your usual tricks. He was so confident in the Sahara Desert, and for good reason, considering that he controlled all this massive sand. But Spider-Man used his strategy, tactics, and intelligence to win this particular battle, though. He wasn't winning this one in a battle of brute strength. Even usually when they fight, he doesn't win because of brute strength. He wins because of strategies and etc. Because of his consciousness being inside of a single grain of sand. Even though it appears that he is all this sand, he's not technically all of this sand. He's only one grain of sand, but can just manipulate a large mass of sand, implanting on why he was able to take the L here when he was massively powered up by the Sahara Desert itself. And if you just want to know precisely how strong he was right here, I actually Googled how many tons of sand is in the Sahara Desert, and it came up to be 28 million tons of desert sand. Sandman can produce 28 million tons of force by manipulating the large Sahara Desert, or 56 billion pounds. Sandman can get broken depending on his environment, you know what I'm saying? But he's not always in these circumstances. It's like a temporary situation. Being in the desert, that's not the best place to fight him, I would say. Like I said, the only way to defeat him is to take that one piece of grain out of that large mass of sand that holds his consciousness in it, so he can't manipulate the other sands in the vicinity. That was the only way they could take him on. He even said water wasn't even going to cut it this time. Did you guys know Sandman was this strong? Did you know his potential is so insane? Yeah, his potential is crazy, right? There's a reason why he's such a nuisance to characters that are leagues stronger than him, like the powerhouse tiers, even though I wouldn't necessarily say he's on the Hulk tier strength and stuff, but he's pretty freaking strong still. And he can even surpass Venom tiers or Carnage tiers depending on how much sand he absorbed, or even surpassing Spider-Man himself in strength. That's a lot of sand manipulation, right? Thanks to his physiology and just annoying nature of his body, he can give like annoyances to characters like Hulk and stuff. Or like how he was able to flood the room of the Fantastic Four despite Invisible Woman and the Thing being a part of the group, showing how much of a nuisance he can really be to heavier hitters. Yeah, how do you fight sand? But post your comments down below. Let me know what you all think. Imagine if he went on a planet that was just made of complete sand, not just the Sahara Desert, but like an actual planet made of complete sand. Like, can you imagine how powerful he would be? Then we would have to worry about our favorite characters, powerhouse tiers, fighting Sandman then, but that's none of my business. Respect Flint Marko, Sandman.